Call a council meeting to order tonight. We've got a quorum present. Tonight will be led at the invocation by Council Member Vernon Brown. After the invocation, we will have the Pledge of Allegiance, so I'd ask everyone to rise at this time, please.
If you'll bow your heads, please. Dear God, we are a city of great blessings. We ask that this body never forget those gifts are not within reach of all. We appreciate the wisdom you bestowed upon the council in creating the homeless coordinator position. The council had the opportunity tonight to meet Stacy Teason, who fills that first ever role. We ask for your guiding hand as she works with the city and Minnehaha County to end homelessness. Give us the strength on all issues to lead, but may we always have the humbleness to listen, especially to other points of views. And finally, dear God, let our community continue to keep the Rolfing family in our prayers. As our collective hearts ache for the loss of their son and brother in Iraq, let them know that we give thanks for Rob Rolfing's fight for freedom in a foreign land. In his name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have the proclamation for Muscular Dystrophy Awareness Month, and I just ask now that Sharon Flynn, if you'd come up along with Heather Herman, and then Marshall Hanson, who is our MDA Goodwill Ambassador. We could have him come up, please. We have a proclamation that reads, whereas neuromuscular diseases currently affect more than 1 million Americans, including members in Greater Sioux Falls, whereas neuromuscular disease include a group of muscle-destroying diseases which vary in inheritance pattern, age of onset, initial muscle attack, and role of progression. Whereas the Muscular Dystrophy Association, one of the world's leading volunteer health agency, is dedicated to finding the cures for over 40 neuromuscular diseases in the Sioux Falls community through funding scientific research, providing medical and clinical assistance, and conducting ongoing public health education. Whereas each year, the Muscular Dystrophy Association holds the Jerry Lewis MDA Labor Day Telethon to raise funds to support patients with this disease and their family members in South Dakota. And whereas MDA is the first nonprofit recognized by the American Medical Association with a Lifetime Achievement Award for significant and lasting contributions to the health and welfare of humanity. Whereas the City of Sioux Falls is similarly committed to the eradication of these diseases and supports the treatment of its citizens who suffer from them. Whereas the City of Sioux Falls encourages private efforts to enhance research funding, programs, and services that address these diseases. Now, therefore, Dave Munson, Mayor of the City of Sioux Falls, do hereby proclaim August 2007 as Muscular Dystrophy Awareness Month in Sioux Falls and encourage the citizens of this community to enhance the understanding of neuromuscular disease and to encourage participation in voluntary activities to support education programs, medical services, and the funding of research to find a cure for them. And we're really glad to have you here tonight. Okay, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move for approval, Jamison.
Jamison moved. Is there a second? Second, Litz. Litz seconded. Is there any further comments or amendments? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the consent agenda, vote yes. Those opposed, no.
Council members Benega,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Costello,
Yes.
Jamison,
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Knudsen,
Yes.
Litz.
Yes. All members present have voted 7 yes, 1 excused. The consent agenda has been approved. Now, is there a motion to approve the regular agenda?
I so move Knudsen.
Knutson moved. Is there a second? Second, Litz. Litz seconded. Further motions? No further motions. All in favor of the motion to approve the regular agenda will vote yes. Those opposed, vote no.
Council members Benega,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Costello,
Yes.
Jamison,
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Knudsen,
Yes.
Litz.
All members present voted 7 yes, 1 excused. The regular agenda has been approved. Now, this is a time that we set aside a period of 5 minutes, and anyone that wishes to address the council for public input for 5 minutes, we'd ask you to come forward, give your name, give your address, and is there anyone that wishes to come forward at this time?
I'm Roger Algersma, 1508 Southdale Drive. I've noticed in the paper and an observation lately a few things that seem to be getting a little short on budget. I got a few mosquito bites last night. I don't know if they're spraying less or the mosquitoes are just getting used to the spray and maybe they got to change chemicals. But I noticed a few weeks ago that they were considering cutting an auditor from the clerk's office, and now in today's paper that they may be having less percentage cops than they normally do. And since this year's budget is 40% more than 2 years ago, it's kind of surprising that some of these things aren't staying up to, the same percentages. And the auditors are the ones that see where the money went. If we're short of money and we're spending lots more, I mean, those things should be checked. And that office is one office that has cut some spending. They're in charge of the elections, and they can combine some precincts to use a little less personnel. And if they're the ones that are able to cut in their own office, in their own department, and have the capability to check on others, I would think they should keep them auditors, or at least the 3 that were planned, so that we do know where the money went. So when the spending is going up and some of these things aren't staying current, I'm not sure what's happening or where it's going, but I think that auditor should be hired that was planned on. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Appreciate you coming down. Others who wish to address the council for a period of 5 minutes? At this time, I ask them to come forward.
Hi, I'm Judy Lawson. I live at 1504 Southwest Avenue, and I put a little pamphlet on in front of each of you with pictures of cars in front of my house there with a flooding problem that we're having in the neighborhood. I don't know if you were aware of how severe it is or anything, and it was originally on the 2004 capital program and then for some reason got dismissed. The problem still exists and is pretty severe. And I don't know if I should talk about it now or if I wait till that number 18 where we have the public hearing.
It's your choice. What you
Yeah,
want
I
to, if
mean,
you want
it's
to
up
wait.
to you guys
If
to
you want
talk
to,
about
talk about it, this capital improvement program,
Right.
that's fine to do that. You're talking about moving it up. I think it's kind of
Right,
is
we're
it scheduled
asking-
we're looking at 08 5-year plan. Yeah, we're looking.
Right.
And if you want to talk to Mark in the meantime, Judy, feel free to do that.
Okay, and then come back when it's
Yeah, you sure
number
can.
18
So,
and,
yeah,
okay.
if you want to
All
talk to Mark, that's fine. Thank you
Okay.
very much for coming, so we look forward to it. Others wish to address the council for public input for a period of 5 minutes at this time? At this time, I see no one coming forward, so we will move into the regular agenda. Item number 1.
Deferred action, conditional use permit appeal, 2007-0411, corner of 22nd and Sertoma. The conditional use permit was to change existing home to a daycare center. The Planning Commission denied the conditional use permit.
Good evening, Mike Cooper, Planning and Building Services. This conditional use permit has been appealed to the City Council by the petitioner who was proposing to develop the daycare center at this property. Since that time, the applicant has now decided to withdraw the appeal, and they have applied for a new conditional use permit for an assisted living facility at this location. And so that will be going through the Planning Commission hearing process at the next meeting in August.
So the wishes are to withdraw then. That would be noted that item number 1 will be withdrawn. Item number 2,
Special one-day liquor license request for Washington Pavilion Management Incorporated, Washington Pavilion of Arts and Science, to be operated at 301 South Main Avenue as follows in 2007. August 31st for a class reunion, August 10th, 11th, 17th, 18th, September 8th, 14th, 15th for wedding receptions. Number 3, special one-day malt beverage license for the Elride Shrine, 510 South Phillips Avenue, to be operated in the city parking lot directly behind their building at 501 South First Avenue, commonly known as the 13th Street Lot, on August 4th, 2007 for the Rock and Ride. Item 4, special one-day malt beverage license request for the Sister Cities Association to be held on July 25th, 2007 at the Multicultural Center, 515 North Main Avenue, to host a German band, and on September 15, 2007 for the German Fest of Sioux Falls on Phillips Avenue from 10th to 12th Streets. Item 5, special one-day malt beverage license for Philanthropy Promotions Incorporated to be operated at J&L Harley-Davidson, 2601 West 60th Street North on July 25, 2007 for Bike Night, withdrawn by the applicant.
Lori Bossman with the City Finance Office. I can answer questions on items 2 through 5.
any questions of Lori? Okay, Kevin?
Laurie, with regard to philanthropy promotions, we've had several submissions, withdrawals. Is it having something to do? We also had, didn't we do a permanent license for this?
We did, and this was
Okay.
kind of an insurance backup
Okay.
plan B, just in case that did not go through.
So that's why this is being withdrawn,
Right.
because they no longer need
They
it.
no longer need it, and the event was coming up real shortly, so we just wanted to be sure they had coverage.
Thank you.
Other questions of Lori, items 2 through 5? Any others who wish to address the council on items 2 through 5? Not, we've withdrawn 5, so we're down to 2 through 4. Is there council?
I move for approval of items 2, 3, and 4.
Knutson
Second,
moved. Is
Jameson.
there a second?
Second, Jameson.
Jamison seconded. Further comments? Seeing no further comments, all in favor of the motion to approve items 2 through 4, vote yes. Those opposed, vote no.
Council members Benega,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Costello,
Yes.
Jameson,
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Knutson.
Yes.
Litz.
Yes.
All members present have voted. Items 2 through 4 have been approved, 7 yes, 1 excused. Item 6.
Deferred action, second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, approving the sale of real estate belonging to the City of Sioux Falls and directing deed of conveyance be delivered to the purchaser thereof. Uptown Phase 1.
Good evening, Erica Beck with the City Planning Department. This is the second reading for an ordinance that would allow the sale of the Phase 1 Uptown property for a total of $1,058,935, As a reminder, this ordinance specifically identifies Phase 1 only. There are a potential of 2 additional phases, of which an additional $1.5 million would be paid to the city for the property. As a brief background, this property is part of the former railroad right-of-way purchased by the city in 2005 for a total of approximately $1.5 million, which translates to roughly $4 a square foot versus the roughly $12.50 per square foot in which the city is selling the land. So another comparison of what I just said is that we basically paid around $338,000 for this piece of property that we're looking at tonight, and we are selling it for roughly a little over $1 million. In May of 2006, the city issued a request for proposals asking developers and interested parties to submit proposals with a dense urban development characteristic. We received, as a result of that request, the Uptown at Falls Park proposal, which was a collaborative redevelopment effort from a respected team within the Sioux Falls community. As part of the ordinance, you will find attached a copy of the draft final development agreement as prepared by the city attorney's office. The final development agreement has been kept concise and to the point, reinstating those items found in both the preliminary development agreement signed in February of this year, as well as the reinstatement of those items found in the adopted TIF 8 plan. Last month, this item was deferred at the request of the Uptown Group due to an engineering concern related to drainage. Craig Lloyd from the Uptown Group is here to explain the solution that they've come up with in regards to that engineering concern, as well as to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica.
Craig Lloyd, 1005 Tomar Road, a partner in the Uptown project. Last month, we came to you for a deferral, as Eric was saying. Through a lot of work through the engineering department, the planning department, the parks department, everybody who is involved with drainage in that area, I feel with our redesign of our buildings and redoing some of our ingress and egress out of our underground parking, we've been able to come to a preliminary agreement as far as concept and how to fix the problem. If our proposal would go all the way through, it won't cost the city any money. We will be able to develop our area in a fashionable manner in a time period that meets our criteria versus maybe a 3-year delay. We feel that everybody's worked in conjunction to try to solve the problem. And I mean, our group is really happy with the solution, and hopefully we can continue to work through the different departments to make that happen. Anybody have any questions?
Thanks, Craig. Questions of Craig? Or Eric, either one? Thank you very much, Kevin.
A question for Erica. At first reading, we learned that there was a change from the preliminary to the final agreement with regard to the proceeds, and phase one for $1 million something, like you said. The preliminary agreement calls for the receipt of that money upon closing. Now we're talking about the money being split into half now and half 2 years from now. I asked then if there was an explanation for that. Do you have one?
I actually provided my version of the explanation at that first reading, but I'm going to defer that question to Craig because I think he can provide his version of that explanation for you. And then if you have any additional questions after that, I'd be happy to answer them.
Try to go back to where we started, which is when we received the RFP from the city to put together a proposal on how to make our proposal to the city. Part of our original agreement, our original proposal to the city was that part of the TIF money could be used for land purchase. And that was part of the original RFP that was sent out to everybody to bid on at the same time. So when we answered the RFP, I believe it was last February, part of our original proposal to the city, which I believe was accepted, had that 50% would be at the preliminary closing and the other 50%, and I will say that we didn't say 50%, okay? We just knew that we could use some of the money for under the TIF program, and part of it would have to come out of our capital. The preliminary development agreement was signed by the city, as was said in the option that I just went through. And then the TIF 8, which you approved, spelled it out again, and maybe that's where you think that you, this is the first time you heard about it. In our mind, Kevin, we thought we were operating underneath the same procedure all the time, and we didn't by any means mean to try to come up with something new at the end or anything else. We thought it was part of the policies, part of the procedures all the way along. And I could be corrected by Eric, but that's the way we went back over all our stuff today, and try to verify that, and that's what our verification came up with.
Kevin?
I may not have a correct copy of the preliminary agreement that was signed back in April, but in there it indicates, this is, and I'm quoting from the conveyance of real property section, the total purchase price for the real estate being conveyed shall be $2,582,786, and which shall be due and payable at the time of closure for each parcel. The purchase price for each parcel shall depend upon an allocation of the total purchase price by square footage. And I understand that the final agreement, it allocates that square footage. So again, that was my understanding. If I misinterpreted that, but it seems clear to me that we were to receive whatever the square footage allocation was, we would receive full purchase price at the time of closing.
I don't have that in front of me, and the way I read the TIF agreement and the agreement was that it could be allocated to the TIF, and that's what we were going by. And
Further questions of Craig? Pratt?
Did you sign the development? These were signed, weren't they, preliminary development agreements?
I signed a bunch of agreements, Pat. I don't know if that's the one I signed or not, to be honest with you. I don't have my file here. I should have brought it.
Do you want a copy of it? I think, I can't read the writing, but somebody from Uptown signed it.
I probably signed it if you can't read the writing.
I have another question back on your drainage issue. So what exactly is the solution for the drainage long-term?
Long-term is to run a pipe over to the Sioux Falls. Okay? That might be 5 years from now, might be 10 years from now, but at some point in time, that's where the water's going to have to go. And you got to go through EPA. I'm speaking for the engineers, but you're going to have to go through EPA and take a pipe over to the falls at some point in time in the future. Depends on the development of downtown.
And you guys will be paying for that through the proceeds from your TIF?
We'd either pay it through proceeds, but the preliminary for the next probably 5 years depends on other developments around that area. Because all we have is that 4 acres and plus the stuff on Main. But you got the county courthouse that's adding, or the county annex that's contributing to that. The stuff to the north of that is contributing to that. And so I can't tell you what the crystal ball says. Preliminarily, we're going to run the water down 4th Avenue over land. We changed all our parking ramps to come off of the north building, will come off of the north end of it instead of coming off of 4th Avenue. The other one will come off the alley towards 5th Street connection. And when you do that, you take up about 34 to 40 parking stalls. Plus, you devaluated our land because now we can't use some of that land for building. We got to use it for driveways and access. And we hope to come to some kind of agreement with the Parks Department on the park land in Phase 2.
So that what you're saying is a portion of the cost for this pipe could be paid for by a cost sharing for other development that's around that. Mm-hmm. Or what you just said, are you intending that perhaps if there's a TIF number 2 or the second phase, that might pay for some of the?
We'd probably be through TIF 2 before that ever gets through the EPA. I mean, last time it only took, I think, 3.5, 4 years.
Okay.
Further questions of Craig or Erica? Others that wish to address the council on item number 6?
Just wanted to make a couple quick comments on the questions that have been raised. I think as we worked diligently on the preliminary agreement, obviously there was a change between that agreement and the final agreement that's being presented to you tonight. And of all the review that we went through with the different entities, that's something that we just didn't catch. Again, I don't think there was any intent to do an end run, saying now that we're here for the vote that we're asking that to be split up into 2 payments instead of 1. It was an area that obviously the Uptown group didn't catch, we didn't catch, and in hindsight, we should have done that. So by the time this came to first reading, that was an understanding that we would like to propose that this first phase be split up into 2 payments. The second thing is that with the storm drainage improvements, at least based on the information that I've been involved with, it does sound like we're going to be able to reach a solution to this with the initial phases, phase 1 and 2, that will not be a financial deficit to the city of Sioux Falls, that we'll be able to come up with an engineering solution with some modifications of their site plan, looking at additional parking opportunities, and those costs will be TIF eligible, so that we think there's not going to be a need to come back at a future date to a council and asking for some kind of a supplemental appropriation. So that's the good news, and we're happy about that finding. That month delay, I think, has been very successful in coming up with a good solution to that.
Thank you. Mike, questions of Mike?
Mike, I'm not suggesting that the idea of taking half the money now and half in 2 years is a worse idea than it was, in the preliminary plan. All I was simply looking for is an explanation as to how that changed.
Yes,
okay.
And the explanation is that it was always the intent of Uptown to do it that way, but when we did the preliminary agreement, we just didn't put the right language in there, so that was our
I have another question, if I might. There was a memo circulated last month regarding how we should spend the proceeds from this first sale. Has that been finalized? I know there was some discussion among council members that perhaps that money could be put into our CIP plan rather than putting it into projects that were listed in that memo.
Our intent is, based on how you vote tonight, would be to submit the CIP-eligible projects to the CIP committee and go through that process of review and recommendation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. For those projects, then will that come next year through the CIP, or are you intending to make an amendment to the proposed CIP now?
We're proposing for some of those to be submitted for the 07 amendment process.
For 08.
And that'll come back to you in August, I believe, for final consideration.
Bob Jameson?
Just for Craig, a timeline of how the project is going and so forth, I think for the general public, I think would be good information for them.
Presently, it's all a part of the project, but some of it isn't on city land. It's on Main Street. The old Anderstein or the Pumpkin Building or the Orange and Black Building, however you want to refer back to that, which we call the Tri-State Creamery Building. Right now, our first tenant moves in there August 1. We will have occupancy cars on that building at that point in time, and we've got some pretty good interest in renting out that office space. The one thing that's been holding us up this whole time is this 4th Street to try to figure out how to solve all these issues. 4th Street, we hope to get the final plans approved through engineering by August 1st to start finishing that street. And hopefully that will kick off all the way up to what we call the Arches Building this year. And the Larson Building, which is the stoplight building, or the red, yellow, and green building, will be ready for occupancy, we hope, about November 1st for our first residential loft units. And we hope to have some office people coming in there at that point in time. The Arches project, we are scheduled right now to break ground on that sometime 1st of March. And, contractors like digging with, instead of shovels, we like pickaxes better. So we hope to break ground at that point in time. And we have gone through a number of different designs on that as far as height. And I think we're getting that, but we hope to have about 108 units in that building, along with about 60,000 square feet of office space. Surprisingly enough, we've had a lot of interest in our office space down there as we have with the apartments. So we're real excited to get started here sometime in March and get going on the Arches side of this deal.
Very good, thank you.
Further questions of Craig? Others that wish to address the council on item number 6? Okay, is there a motion or discussion?
Move for approval, Benninga.
Benninga moved. Is there a second?
Second, Kavanaugh.
Kavanaugh seconded. Further comments on the motion to approve? No further discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve, vote yes. Those opposed, vote no.
Council members Benega,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Costello,
Yes.
Jameson,
Yes.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Knutson,
Yes.
Litz.
Yes. All members present voted 7 yes, 1 excused. Item 6 has been approved. Item 7.
Second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, temporarily establishing a portion of 3rd Street as a one-way street.
Good evening, Chad Hebe, Office of Public Works, Engineering Division. In the near future, Minnehaha County will be beginning 2 projects. The first is the reconstruction of a parking lot, and the second is the addition to the courthouse. To facilitate parking during the construction, the Minnehaha County Commission has requested that the City of Sioux Falls stripe 3rd Street from Minnesota Avenue to Main Avenue for diagonal parking. To facilitate this, 3rd Street has to be a eastbound one-way street with diagonal parking on the south side of the street, which will create 46 diagonal parking stalls. This is similar to what was done in 2002 on 4th Street during the construction of the Law Enforcement Center. 3rd Street will function as a one-way street until the courthouse expansion is complete, which will take approximately 18 months.
Questions of Chad on item 7? Others who wish to address the council item number 7? Is there a motion to approve?
I so move. Knutson.
Knutson moves. Is there a second?
Second, Jameson.
Jameson second. Further comments? See no further comments. All in favor of the motion to approve item number 7 will vote yes. Those opposed, vote no.
Council members Benega,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Costello,
Yes.
Jameson,
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Knutson,
Yes.
Litz.
Yes.
All members present have voted. Item 7 has been approved, 7 yes, 1 excused. Item 8.
First reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the revised ordinances of the city by amending Appendix B zoning ordinance outdoor lighting.
Items 8 through 17 were considered by the City Planning Commission at their July meeting. Item 8 is a staff-initiated request to amend a section of our zoning ordinance pertaining to light requirements, outdoor lighting requirements. What we've discovered is there's some issues that we have with the enforcement as far as dealing with the requirements and also the standards that we've been using. So we've got together with our enforcement staff as well as representatives of the lighting industry to look at these amendments. And these are designed to clarify what the requirements are for lighting, outdoor lighting requirements, as well as the enforcement. And it's somewhat technical, but it really does help simplify the process and clarify the process.
Questions of Mike on item number 8? Let's go to item 9.
First reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the revised ordinances of the city by amending Chapter 15.03, definitions, and Chapter 15.55, parking, loading, and stacking regulations.
It'll be noted that Councilmember Brown will be excused from item number 9.
The primary purpose of this zoning ordinance amendment is to establish a new definition as well as parking standards for the land use that we're calling telecommunications data storage facility. And this is defined as a self-supporting facility used to store data sent and received by telecommunications, not requiring on-site staff to operate or maintain the storage of the data. This is a land use that we're starting to see. We have received proposals for this use. We don't have a good definition, and we also do not have parking requirements which address the fact this will not have staff assigned to it. So again, the purpose of this amendment is to establish a definition specifically for this land use and also to put parking requirements for this land use.
Questions of Mike on item number 9. Could we, since Councilmember Brown is excused in this one, and then he could vote on the rest, could we just take this one and get the first reading out of the way and set the date for August 6th for item number 9, and we'll take the others?
I so move.
Okay, Knutson, is there a second?
Second, Litz.
Litz seconded. Further comments? Not all in favor of setting the hearing date for August 6th for item number 9 will vote yes, those opposed vote no.
Council members Benega,
Yes.
Costello,
Yes.
Jameson,
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Knutson.
Yes.
Litz.
All members present vote aye. 9, the first, second reading will be set for August 6th. 6 yes, 2 excuse. Okay, thank you. Go to 10.
First reading, major amendment, 2007-06, 16A, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending Chapter 15.45.070, Planned Development Districts, allowing changes in land use as reflected in the revised sub-area regulations, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Siebert Avenue.
This petition pertains to the Granite Valley Edition, which is located on North Cliff Avenue, north of I-90, east side of Cliff Avenue. This particular amendment would affect approximately 38 acres on the northeast corner of this subdivision. The 38 acres were originally proposed for manufactured housing. And this amendment would allow the 38 acres to be divided up into single-family residential, twin home, and light industrial land uses.
Questions of Mike on item number 10. Let's go to 11.
First reading, major amendment, 2007-06-11, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending Chapter 15.45.070, Planned Development Districts, allowing changes in land use as reflected in the revised sub-area regulations, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls at 320 feet east of North Shawnee Avenue and south side of East 3rd Street.
This petition involves approximately 8 acres in the middle of the development known as Twin Towers Edition. It's located on the north side of 6th Street, between 3rd and 6th Street, west of Bonson Avenue. This particular area currently has 2 telecommunication towers. The proposal is to replace those 2 with a new monopole tower farther to the west, and then add additional single-family residential lots. So the Twin Towers Edition will eventually have 1 tower. But this is an amendment that is being requested for that particular area.
Questions of Mike on item number 11. Kevin?
Do we have to rename that street?
We have not been asked to do that yet, so. This actually goes back before 9/11, too, the name that they came up with.
Further questions? Bob, let's.
Mike, can I see the frame that was up just before this one? Yeah, you know, I've been by there a number of times. Okay, I see you've got, what's going to become of this big hole in the ground?
Right now, it's a rubble site, and the proposal has been in the past to potentially look at that as a possible neighborhood park site. There hasn't been any formal approval of that at this time, but it is currently being used as a rubble site.
So when Friesen does tear downs and things like that, this is his personal rubble site?
Yes, it's an approved rubble site.
Very good.
I should say permitted rubble site.
Is the possibility of any other lots for residential around the periphery of this, is that a possibility? Or is that
I think it's a possibility, but again, we would have to look at the environmental results of the rubble site, the filling process, and see if that's a possibility or not. The additional row of lots that's proposed would be along the east side there.
Was that mined for gravel at one time?
I believe it was originally, yes.
Thank you, Mike.
Further questions? Kevin?
How much farther west, Mike, would the monopole go than where the 2 are located now?
You have your magical pointer about right there. So that would be in terms of feet. It's probably 300 feet to the west of where the current poles are located.
And at Planning Commission, there were no neighborhood comments about that?
No. No neighborhood comments.
Further questions, Mike, on item 11? Seeing none, let's move to 12.
First reading, major amendment, 2007-06-13, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending Chapter 15.45.070, Planned development districts allowing changes in land use as reflected in the revised sub-area regulations and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls, North Career Avenue and West Cayman Street.
This application pertains to approximately 4 acres of land, which is currently part of the Thielen Business Center development. This area was originally approved for multifamily residential zoning, and the amendment would now allow that to be developed into office.
Questions of Mike on 12? See no questions, we'll move to 13.
I'll excuse myself
Okay.
on this one.
Okay, it'd be noted that Councilmember Jameson will be excused.
First reading, rezone 2007-06-18, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at 85th Street and Western Avenue from the AG Agricultural District to the Heather Ridge 2 Planned Development District and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls.
This amendment, or I should say this rezoning, is part of the Heather Ridge 2nd Planned Development District. It's approximately 1/10 of an acre in size. It's adjacent to a drainage way. We're just making the zoning boundaries line up with the boundaries of the drainage way.
Questions of Mike on item 13?
And the property is proposed for future residential development.
Thank you. Further questions? Could we do the same for 13 as we did for 9, and that's to get approval, set the hearing date for the second reading for August 6th for item 13?
So moved.
Kavanaugh, is there a second?
Second, Brown.
Brown seconded. All in favor of the motion, set the hearing date for August 6th for item 13 will vote yes, those opposed vote no.
Council members Benega,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Costello,
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Knutson,
Yes.
Litz.
Yes.
All members present voted. The hearing date has been set for August 6th for item 13, 6 yes, 2 excused. Item 14.
First reading, rezone 2007-06-23, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at 5109 South Cliff Avenue and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls.
This property is approximately 2 acres in size. It currently is occupied by a multi-tenant office building. When this property was developed into the current office use, the zoning was office, and to this day it remains office.
It'll be noticed that Councilmember James will be excused from item 14.
The building is approximately 50% leased out, and this is the second time that the owner of the building has brought forward a proposal to amend the permitted uses by allowing additional retail development. And in this particular case, the proposal would be to rezone it to a planned development that would identify certain retail uses that would be allowed in addition to the office uses. There were neighborhood meetings and a mail out that went out to the neighborhood area. At the Planning Commission hearing, we heard again from neighbors that were in support of it as well as neighbors that were against it. And the dot matrix that we're showing you, the red dots, represent neighbors that are adjacent to this that are opposed to the change, and the green dots are neighbors farther away that are not opposed to the change. The result of the public hearing was that the Planning Commission recommended denial of this change. The Planning Commission felt that it was built under the office zoning and that it should continue to be developed under the office zoning regulations.
Questions of Mike on item 14? Kevin?
Mike, Lot 1D, I believe, to the south of the subject property. Is that developed at all? Is it
That's
going-
vacant.
It's vacant?
It's also zoned office.
Okay, so it's not a buffer, it's going to be developed eventually.
It's going to be developed eventually as office, yes.
Oh, there is the buffer. I'm
Yep.
sorry. That lot,
Okay,
which is some other number, that is vacant, and that is considered a buffer?
yes.
Bob Litz.
Mike, can you go back to the previous frame that we just had? Yeah, right there. The Mike, yeah, the one just previous to that, right there. Is the gray area that's to the south of there, is that where Lincoln County has their water storage tank?
Yes, that's correct.
Further questions? Mike, on item 14. Not, could we do the same thing? Could we get a motion to approve the second reading for August 6th for item 14?
So moved, Benninger.
Benninger moved. Is there a second?
Second, Brown.
Brown seconded. Further comments? Not. All in favor, set the hearing date for August 6th for item 14. Vote yes. Those opposed, vote no.
Council members Benega,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Costello,
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Knutson,
Yes.
Litz.
Yes.
All members present voted 6 yes, 2 excused. Hearing date has been set for August 6th for item 14. Item 15.
First reading, rezone 2007-0621, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at 301 South Lake Avenue and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls.
This is an existing single-family residential property located in the back of a commercial area known as Zomer Automotive, commercial business, Zomer Automotive Sales. They're proposing to acquire this property and expand their business by rezoning this to commercial, and then they would be required to come back through with a conditional use permit. We did not have any neighborhood concerns on this item at the Planning Commission hearing.
Further questions of Mike on item 15? None. Okay, let's go to 16.
First reading, rezone 2007-0603, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at 1410 West 17th Street, 831 South Lake Avenue, and 829 South Lake Avenue from the RS2 Residential District to the Sanford USD Medical Center Planned Development District, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls.
Okay, have you noted that Councilmember Litz has to be excused?
This property is located just on the northwest area of Sanford Medical Campus. It's currently single-family residential. And this is a proposed site for a new Make-A-Wish office that would be relocated onto this property. The Planning Commission at the hearing felt that since it's going to be an office separate from the Sanford Hospital campus, that we should propose to zone it as office. And so the recommendation that came out of the Planning Commission hearing was to rezone this to office, and we'll be asking for that as an amendment at second reading.
Questions of Mike on item number 16? Bob
Mike,
Jameson.
what kind of a requirement do they have for a neighborhood-friendly office, being this butts up against residential property?
They have to have the setbacks, the parking has to be screened, landscaping, those kind of things.
Okay.
And office is typically used as a buffer zone adjacent to residential areas.
Thank you.
Kevin?
I noticed that the applicant's intent was to put it into their PD. So would this be a separate parcel, separately zoned then?
Yes, this will be separate. The property is currently owned by Sanford Medical, and that's why they had initially filed the application as part of their PD. But we felt since it's a separate office, we didn't want the neighborhood to feel like the hospital was going to be continuing to expand in this direction.
Thank you.
Further questions? Not, could we, on this one as well, could we set the hearing date for August 6th for item 16? Is there a motion?
So moved, Jamison.
I
Jameson
second that.
moved.
Knutson.
Knutson seconded. All in favor of that motion, set the hearing date for August 6th for items 16 will vote yes, those opposed vote no.
Council members Benega,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Costello,
Yes.
Jameson,
Yes.
Kavanaugh, Knutson.
Yes.
All members present voted 6 yes, 2 excused. The hearing date is set for August 6th for item 16. Item 17.
First reading, rezone 2007-0620, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at South Ebenezer Avenue and West Graceland Court, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls.
I should explain that the July Planning Commission meeting was a week later than normal because of the 4th of July holiday. So we placed these items, or submitted these items to the clerk's office prior to the Planning Commission meeting in order to meet our deadlines. This item was deferred by the Planning Commission for further consideration, so we would like to withdraw this from the City Council agenda.
It'll be noted
At this
that item
time.
17 has been withdrawn. Now we're back to, if we could set the hearing date for August 6th for item 8, 10, 11, 12, and 15. Is there a motion to set the hearing date for
I
those?
so move. Knutson.
Knutson moved. Is there a second?
Second, Benninger.
Benninger seconded. All in favor of setting the hearing date for items 8, 10, 11, 12, and 15 for August 6th, vote yes. Those opposed, vote no.
Council members Benega?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Costello?
Yes.
Jameson?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Knutson?
Yes.
Litz?
Yes.
All members present voted. The hearing date has been set. 18 is this time. If you want to read it, go ahead.
Public hearing for public input regarding adoption of the 2008-2012 capital program.
Anyone at this time wishes to address the council in the public hearing portion for the capital improvement program for 2008-2012, come forward. State your name and your address, please.
I'm back. Judy Lawson, Lawson, 1504 Southwest Avenue. We are proposing that you add my area of town into the 2008 capital program. We've got some flooding issues in our neighborhood. The pictures that I put in front of you with the red car, by the way, the red car is parked on the boulevard. It's not driving down the street. It's parked along the boulevard. The boulevard is covered with water, as is the sidewalk, as is the lawn in front of my house, and this is after a half an inch of rain. The other picture that I have is on 23rd and West after an inch of rain. You'll see the water has flooded again over the boulevard into you can see my backyard is flooded, as is the house on that corner. We're getting kind of a deluge from Sanford, I believe Sanford Medical. All of the pipes along 22nd Street and connected to the hospital are 24-inch. They're all running into 22nd. But then when 22nd hits Lake, it hits a 15-inch pipe. And that's what we're getting is the runoff or the overflow from that. It hits Lake, 22nd and Lake, runs down that way and curves down 23rd, if that makes sense, to the west. Goes to West, which is a dead-end street, and it's all downhill. It just all this water pours down in our area. First Baptist Church is also there with a parking lot that is on a hill that runs down 23rd Street also. It comes over the parking lot like a dam and just zooms down there. It's going so fast that when it hits the corner, it goes around the corner, misses all the storm drains, which are along West Avenue. I don't know if this makes sense, but so it's shooting around those. There's none along 23rd to catch it there. So we're just getting, it's kind of scary that you get that much water with a half an inch of rain. We're wondering what would happen if we had the 2, 3, 4-inch one. Are we going to have the same problem that they had on like Norton Avenue a few years ago where the basements get flooded? I've talked to a lot of people in the neighborhood. One gentleman on the corner of 16th and West lived there 30 years. He said every year it's gone up at least 2 feet. Every time you get a rain, it goes that much closer to his house. And it just seems like, the problem isn't being addressed. It was on the 2004 agenda. The people in the neighborhood, I wasn't there, but even got letters saying they were on the capital improvement program, and they were going to put in new pipe, and would they like their sump pumps attached to the pipe, and they asked all the residents to respond, which they did, and suddenly the plan just disappeared and nothing was done. They don't know what happened, but it must have got put on a back burner or something. I think that Sanford's going to be putting in some kind of a drainage pond or something. I don't know what they're called. There's also one at Edison Junior High, and there's one at Park Ridge. I've talked to 2 engineers and some other people in the neighborhood which are saying right now they're not going to help. The one at Edison is just too far down, and we've got to get the water from 22nd over to past the 15 and 1600 blocks, which is where it's level and there's no drainage. That's where it's all accumulating because of those small pipes. If we can get it through our area and to those drainage ponds, that's different. But right now it's stalled and flooding there. Don't know if you have any other questions or anything, but we would ask that this project, because if you would drive out there during a rainstorm, that one picture that with my red car, the water is about 18 inches deep. And that's, like I say, that's half an inch of rain.
questions, Bob James?
Not necessarily for you, but for Mark Cotter. I know you weren't here when we had rains in 2004, but was this identified at that time as a problem area? Do you know?
It was, and it was identified as the design evolved for that basin. The majority of the storm drainage was coming from the VA area. That's why the 2 ponds in Spellerberg were installed. And then with the existing piping network that was between there and Edison, the Edison improvement was needed. What was also then, as the design continued, these intersections in this neighborhood were identified for future improvements. And essentially that's what this project's in the CIP. As I told Judy and Sandy out in the hall, we were planning on studying this in 11 and doing the construction in 12. We're committed to moving up the study and doing the study in 8 and establishing a true cost for these improvements. There is underground detention that's happening currently at Sanford with that improvement, and there's also the city's also making a significant improvement at Edison. So we understand the problem. We'd like to see the solution and actually the ponding reduced as well. And so one of the areas on these pictures is this is where the water turns, and it's also the low side of the street. So there's improvements that can certainly be made to reduce the overland flow here as we study it.
Thank you.
Kevin?
Mark, do you have an estimate of what it would cost?
I don't. That'll be our focus of doing the study in 8, and then we'll actually identify those true costs.
So this was not something that was an identified project prior to this?
It is an identified project. One of the things, and it's in our plan, and I can at least give you some facts of what it's slated at. And it's also part of the PowerPoint presentation that we did, but it's on page 167 of your CIP book, and it's called the Hayward Edition, Drainage Improvements. And we had programmed in 2011 $80,000 for study and design, and then $980,000 for construction in 12. And so one of our keys here is now with the improvements that have been done, we'll be able to observe what's happened. We'll also be able to study this area, tie down a good cost estimate, and if we are able, we will recommend to move it forward. Okay. But we will have dollars in 2008 that we will, Engineering and Public Works will study this area.
Further questions? Okay, thank you. Are there questions of Judy? Thank you very much, Judy. Appreciate it.
I'd just like to thank Judy for stepping forward and speaking for your neighborhood. I know it's hard to get in front of that microphone sometimes.
Thank you for coming. Others that wish to step forward for the public hearing and public input on the CIP 2008-2012?
Did I hear Mark say that they were going to look at moving it forward after the Edison project was done and you can determine the modeling at that point, Mark?
That's true. One thing we'll do is we'll essentially do study preliminary design, allow us to tie down exactly what's happening to the north at Sanford Medical, because they are doing a stormwater improvement program there. Also, the as-built work that is occurring at Edison, and we'll just be able to get better information.
Okay, but I did hear you say that you are going to move this ahead when the time is appropriate. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
But essentially the change that you will see in the CIP is that we will program dollars for a study, not that full 80,000 that was slated in 11, but we'll program dollars to actually study it in 2008.
Thank
Okay?
you, Mark.
You're welcome.
Pat?
Is it appropriate to ask questions for John from the Pavilion on a part of their CIP now, or
For who?
for John from the Pavilion?
Yeah.
Is that possible?
Yeah.
One of the amendments that we're considering making is moving up the replacement of the windows from, I believe it's 2010 and 11, or it might be 9 and 10. Can you speak to the need for that particular cause for those windows?
That need has always been, because the city is the owner of the facility, the city's always requested those windows to be put in. I believe the need would be primarily for, not necessarily aesthetics, it'd be energy cost savings in those windows.
Do you have any idea what the cost savings would be on those?
Back in 2005, when we provided those numbers to you, give me just a second here to go through my pages here. In 2005, we provided those numbers to you, and at that point, it was a $19,000 annual savings by 2005 energy costs.
Okay.
So a pretty significant amount from then and now. It's increased.
And I don't have my copy. Can you tell me, is it 2010, 11, or is it 9 and 10?
Currently, it's slated at 2010 and 2011.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Others that wish to address public input for the capital programs for 2008, 2012? I see no one coming forward at this time, so we will move to 19.
A resolution approving diagonal parking on 3rd Street from Minnesota Avenue to Main Avenue.
This is the diagonal parking associated with item 7 that we talked about earlier regarding 3rd Street as a one-way street.
Questions, Chad, on 19? Others wish to address the council on item 19. Is there a motion to approve?
Move for approval, Benninga.
Benninga moves. Is there a second?
Second, Jameson.
Jameson seconded. Further comments? Motions? None. All in favor of the motion to approve 19 will vote yes. Those opposed vote no.
Council members Benega?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Costello?
Yes.
Jameson?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Knutson?
Yes.
Litz?
All members present vote. Item 19 has been approved. 7 yes, 1 excused. Item 20.
A resolution approving diagonal parking on 4th Street.
The Sioux Falls Police Department and the Minnehaha County Commission have requested that parking on 4th Street between Minnesota Avenue and Main Avenue be striped to maximize the number of parking stalls. To accomplish this, the east 400 feet will be striped for 45-degree diagonal parking on the north side, with the south side striped for parallel parking. The west 300 feet is too narrow for diagonal parking and will be striped for parallel parking on both sides.
Questions of Chad on item number 20? Others that wish to address the council on item number 20? Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve. Brown.
Brown moved. Who's, and
Second, Litz.
Litz seconded. Further comments? Seeing no further comments, all in favor of the motion to approve item 20, vote yes. Those opposed, vote no.
Council members Benega?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Costello?
Yes.
Jameson?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Knutson?
Yes.
Litz?
Yes.
All members present voted. Item 20 has been approved. 7 yes, 1 excused. Item 21.
A resolution including certain contiguous territory within the corporate limits of the city of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, 60th Street North and Westport Avenue.
This is a petition from the Sioux Falls Regional Airport Authority requesting annexation of approximately 180 acres of property northwest of the airport to be annexed into the city limits. As you know, we've been working with the Airport Authority on updating their master plan, and the City Council, you have approved a new airport zoning district. The intent now is to go back and initiate rezoning of all the property under the Airport Authority to the new airport zoning district within the city limits.
Questions of Mike on item 21? Others who wish to address the council on item 21? Is there a motion to approve item 21?
Move for approval, Jameson.
Jameson moves. Is there a second?
Second, Benninga.
Benninga seconded. Further comments? Seeing no further comments, all in favor of motion to approve item 21, vote yes. Those opposed, vote no.
Council members Benega?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Costello?
Yes.
Jameson?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Knutson?
Yes.
Litz?
All members present have voted. Item 21 has been approved. 7 yes, 1 excused. Item 22.
A resolution accepting and approving the downtown parking needs and financial assessment study.
Good evening. Randy Bartunik, Director of Community Development and Public Parking. I have Mr. Philip Barron here from Walker Parking Consultants who will provide you an overview of their findings and recommendations on the study.
I'm going to go over briefly the parking study that we've been working on for the last 6 months. The agenda, I'll keep it brief. We'll hit the high points. I'll hit on the scope of services, our study area, parking needs, site planning, and financial analysis. And then we'll discuss about what happens next. After the study's complete, where do we go from here? Primary tasks that we were charged with include 5 items. We met with community leaders and stakeholders. We had 6 meetings. They were well attended. And we heard concerns from retailers, business owners, vendors during the special events, voiced opinions, as well as employers in town, and there were residents as well involved. We also had input from the planning department, and the parking advisory board was actively involved in giving us direction, and representatives Randy Bartunik and Dave Skanke from the parking department specifically. We then determined the current and future need. That was a quantitative analysis that we performed, built a model. We analyzed potential development sites. Then we looked at evaluating the Parking Enterprise Fund. What's the current status of the fund? From a financial perspective, what are the capabilities? And then we identified funding methods. And we looked at other communities, as well as specifically here in Sioux Falls, what's happening, what are the trends with financing, and put together a list of not specific recommendations, but more of a list of ideas. Because until specific plans get established, we can't really tie down an appropriate financing approach. The study area, 46-block area, to the north, Falls Park Drive, south, 14th. And we have Weber Avenue and Minnesota Avenue bookending on each side, east and west. This area represents the core central business district and the areas that reflect anticipated growth. And that study area was determined by the Parking Advisory Board, and Walker expressed our professional opinion and felt it was appropriate. In summary, 65% of the supply is utilized during peak conditions on a weekday. And that occurs around 10 a.m. If we look at a subsection of that, it's 86%, which is city-owned. 86% of the city supply is 86% of the city supply is utilized. It has a higher utilization rate. Has the large structures that are utilized on a daily basis. They're sold over 100%, which is a commendable practice that we found when we came here, because many cities don't look at maximizing their parking resources. And in this case, the parking department's looking at the characteristics of the community, realizing that they're rarely going to have 100% physical capacity of the garages, so they oversell them, similar to a hotel property. We projected future demand by looking at land uses. We looked at 15 different projects and the land uses that included retail, office, hotel, residential. And the incremental new demand projected over the next 10 years is approximately 5,000 new vehicles coming downtown. When we overlay that future demand and compare it to the existing supply and availability, we find that the adequacy is at a deficit at approximately 1,500 spaces if the river ramp and 8th Street lots are removed. And that's a key variable to consider. We looked at it another way. What if the river ramp and 8th Street lot were to remain in service and maintenance was prepared on the facilities to extend the useful life? Well, then the future need would be reduced to approximately 1,000 spaces. Once we identified the deficits, we looked at the areas in which they were projected to occur. We identified 7 potential development sites that would potentially satisfy that deficit, the deficits. What we identified in the selection process was a weighted matrix approach and various criteria. We worked with the planning, the City Planning Commission, our department, the Public Parking Advisory Committee, as well as other various stakeholders had input in the criteria in which we used to weigh each development site. When each criteria was then given a value. And so we independently took the information that was given to us by the community, what they felt was important, and we analyzed it. And we identified sites A, C, D, and F. They all ranked towards the top. Now, those sites will vary based on the timing of the developments that are projected to occur. But they all ranked very closely. And then we proceeded to the next portion of the analysis. After we identified some potential development sites, we started to say, where's the money going to come from to build the parking facilities? First, we need to look at what the enterprise fund is. It's a self-supporting unit of the city government. We need to use user fees to pay for the parking system, just by the design. It's not a public utility. So keeping that in mind, we looked at the trends, the financial trends of the enterprise fund, and we noticed that over a 6-year period, there was a 5.5% increase in revenue and 29% increase in expenses. And naturally, with those two trends, you find a progressively decreasing NOI, which is a serious concern because there's an existing debt amount out there, and the annual debt service payment is approximately $522,000 a year, and that carries a 1.25 coverage ratio in the bond covenants, which means they need to have an NOI of approximately $650,000 a year to stay within the covenants of the bond indenture. So when we looked at the analysis, we said we're going to take two approaches. We're going to look at as-is conditions. What if the Parking Enterprise Fund remains operating as is? No rates are adjusted, no supply is added or removed, and demand is relatively constant. And then the second scenario we looked at is modifying the rates. Because it is a fee-supported enterprise fund, we looked at parking rates for on-street, parking rates for off-street, as well as fines and penalties, which also are contributed to the enterprise fund to pay on debt. The results of the analysis we identified under as-is conditions in projected years out, within the next 5 to 10 years, the enterprise fund will have insufficient funds to cover the existing outstanding debt, the $522,000 a year. And that's assuming no actions are taken. Scenario 2, where we look at some modifications to the rate structures, we identify a break-even and actually a surplus of revenue situation. However, it isn't enough to pay for a parking facility and service the existing debt. It can contribute to a parking facility, a new project, but by no means is it adequate to pay for a facility outright. To give you an example of the costs of a parking structure, this brief matrix here we put together, we have an example. If a parking structure costs $15,000 a space, and you finance the parking facility over 20 years at a 6% tax-exempt rate, and the annual operating expenses on a parking facility are $350 annually per space, the required monthly income is $165. Now, you can look at that and say there's no way a monthly parking lease could be $165 in downtown, but that's a combination of special event revenue, of on-street contribution, any type of short-term revenue that's coming into the parking facilities. But that's just an example of the cost of parking. And how do other cities pay for new parking facilities? Knowing those facts and the expense of parking, we see the strength of systems. When a city has a parking enterprise or a parking authority or parking division, they leverage the strength of their parking system. The facilities that are solvent usually carry the ones that are insolvent. And they take the net operating income and they pledge it to a new project. In this case, here in Sioux Falls, we have existing debt of $500,000+ a year. So the incremental amount gained is going to be minimal to support new parking. Another option cities use, parking enterprise funds will often piggyback on general obligation bonds. They'll look at doing a leaseback revenue bond if you can get a large tenant to commit a significant portion of the supply. They pledge TIF, tax increment financing backed bond. But they only can subsidize new parking through rates. It's difficult to pay for them outright. And we don't see many cities doing that outside of your larger communities like Chicago, L.A., Pittsburgh, New York, places of that nature. And one important note is that if parking was extremely profitable, the private sector would be involved. And right now, we don't see a lot of folks clamoring to build a public parking facility because the returns just aren't there. And that's why the city comes in and treats it as an infrastructure many times. The next steps, where do we go from here? Well, we're recommending that the city and the Parking Advisory Board and the Parking Department consider specific adjustments to parking rates, sitting down and putting a timetable together, when they'll be implemented, where they'll be implemented. We believe in putting an equitable approach together so that it can serve various economic stratas. We don't want a blanket approach where all parking rates are increased to an equal amount, but we'll keep the staggered approach so on the periphery, those who choose not to pay premium for parking will have the opportunity to pay lower fees, and those in closer proximity to the core downtown, the main demand generators, because of the close proximity to the demand, will pay premium. But we recommend that they put that in writing and get specifics about the new rate structures. We recommend that they establish a parking repair and replacement sinking fund. And our research shows that $75 per space annually typically is enough. It builds up a reserve over time where there's no surprises when capital repairs need to take place, slab replacement, cleaning, things of that nature that are large expenditures. And it's a good steward of the community's public parking by maintaining the facilities and maximizing their useful life. Also, looking at the development sites, it's a little premature to identify one specific site and say this is the absolute best site to develop on. So we're recommending that the sites are prioritized, and they're prioritized according to the timeline when new developments are projected to occur. Those that are scheduled to occur sooner rather than later would take priority. And we look at it in 2 increments, 1 to 4 years and 5 to 10. Also, following the prioritizing of the sites, we recommend that a comprehensive due diligence process begin by looking at the different development sites and identifying project costs in its entirety, including land acquisition, any demo, tenant relocation that may go along with the development and construction costs of the parking facility. What type of architectural treatment would be desired? Would it be a traditional cast-in-place or precast facility, or would it have architectural treatment that will blend in with the community, have a historic feeling to it? And then, ultimately, the future parking projects depend on the financial capability of the parking fund. So we can discuss the future needs, 1,500 or 1,000 spaces, but the reality is if the parking fund is going to continue to operate as an enterprise fund, it needs to be self-supporting, and the revenue from the enterprise fund comes from fees. So it's important that we take the proper steps and put things in an order of magnitude before we get too aggressive on getting designs of facilities and looking at sites. We need to look at getting the existing enterprise fund in a position where it can fulfill its purpose and contribute to public parking and be used as an economic development tool as well as serving the existing public. Any questions?
Questions?
Sure.
Bob, then Dee.
I'd like to briefly explain to me what a replacement sinking fund is, as well as, I believe going to be your question.
Sinking fund. Sinking fund typically can't be touched. It's earmarked for a specific purpose. And with parking, with capital repairs and replacement parking, it has a high wear and tear factor on the buildings, open to freeze-thaw cycles. And we see cities encounter situations where they'll have a full slab replacement required, which puts the revenue stream out of commission. It displaced parkers, and also it's a risk factor. There's a community not far from here that went about 10 years over a useful life of a parking garage. You could drive through it and the slabs would move, but it was still open. But at the joints, you could see right down through, and it's just because joints need to be repaired, and if you defer the maintenance, which is it happens frequently, deferred maintenance, repairs on parking facilities may be a last priority when you're trying to address other community needs. So a sinking fund through the enterprise makes sure that funds are available to address the maintenance on the facilities in a timely manner.
Dee?
I was also wondering what an NOI was.
Net operating income. Net operating income. Revenues less expenses.
Gerald? This question might be for Randy, or maybe you can answer it, but my question is in reference to the river ramp. What's the life expectancy of that ramp with normal repair and maintenance done on an annual basis?
Normal repair and maintenance on a new facility, they're up to 50 years now, the expected life of a facility. Randy can address the specific repairs that have been done.
And we're on year 45 in that particular ramp. I think it was opened in 1962. But back in 2000, 2001, we did some substantial improvements on the lower level on the piers to make sure that structurally it was sound. And we also did some slab repairs to make sure that we weren't getting any corrosion to the steel in it. And my belief is that with continued normal maintenance activities, which normal maintenance activities on a structure like that could very easily be to $300,000 to $500,000 every 8 to 10 years, but with those types of repairs, in my belief, that we could easily get another 15 years out of it. I mean, structurally today is in good shape. There's some things we do need to do to it. Some of the internal drainage in there, very honestly, should have been replaced some time ago. We didn't do that, not knowing what the future of that ramp held. We kind of held off on that. But the key for us at that time was to make sure that structurally it's sound, and it is.
But $300,000 to $500,000 a year on a replacement value is no comparison.
Absolutely not.
Phil, with your information on the river ramp, is that a good investment for us to continue to utilize that property?
Well, parking can't be looked at myopically, and so you have to look at from the riverfront plan. Does it fit within that plan? There's a lot of issues that go into the river ramp remaining in place or being removed. From a functional parking standpoint, it's heavily utilized. Actually, I believe there's no spaces available. It's oversold. So it's in close proximity to existing demand generators, office buildings. The employees use the facility. It's a well-used, well-placed property. It's generating positive revenue. It's just when we start looking at the useful life, and there's going to be a point of diminishing return when you start investing more and more into the property. There's going to be a breaking point where it may be better to replace. Right now, as Randy mentioned, year 45 on typical useful life, about 50 years. It's just time to start considering and having some testing done on the facility.
In clarification, Randy, did you say $300,000 to $500,000 every year, or $300,000 to $500,000 every 5 years? Or
I would say we'd be looking at every 8 to 10 years. And so, there's some things we're going to have to do probably on a 5-year and even an annual basis. Those types of major repairs, it would probably be on about an 8 to 10 year basis. And what we're looking at there is any of the spalling on the concrete, joint seal repairs, again, to make sure that you don't have the calcium chloride that's penetrating into the concrete, getting at the steel.
And are we currently planning on making those types of repairs to that project?
I do not have anything right now planned. Like I said, we did that, I think that was in 2001. Is that correct, Dave?
But it's not necessary right now.
Not necessary now. Within the next 5 years, it may be.
Bob James?
This afternoon, you mentioned TIFs.
Correct.
The TIF districts that have been established in Sioux Falls in the past, looking back, probably should have set aside some money out of each one of those TIFs for future parking ramps and put it in a fund for future ramps. So that would be something we ought to look at in the future for any downtown TIFs, that we provide some funding of those TIFs for parking.
Absolutely. I recommend that, and that's frequently the case in many communities. The whole TIF isn't allocated, but a portion.
Sure.
And it's based on in part, a sliding scale. What kind of demand will that new land use within the TIF district generate? Are they going to create, a need for 1,000 new spaces? Well, proportionally, they would contribute more from that TIF versus another one that maybe is a self-contained facility with less parking need. But definitely, that's a source that could go into the enterprise fund, be allocated, transferred in.
Thank you.
Contribute.
Further questions? Not, are there others that wish to address the council on item number 22? Not. Is there a motion for the council to approve the
I so move, Knutson.
Knutson? Is there a second?
Second,
Let's second it. Further comments on the motion to approve the downtown parking? No further comments? All in favor of that motion to approve, vote yes. Those opposed, vote no.
Council members Benega,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Costello.
Yes.
Jameson,
Yes.
Kavanaugh. Knutson.
Yes.
Litz.
Yes.
All members present voted. Item 22 has been approved, 7 yes, 1 excused. Item 23.
Preliminary subdivision plan, 2007-06-19, Grand Arbor addition to the city of Sioux Falls, Minnehaha County, South Dakota, north of northeast corner of 85th Street and Western Avenue, for the construction of 64 townhomes and 14 buildings on 14 lots.
This is a subdivision plan that has been recommended for approval by the Planning Commission as well as city staff. It includes a private drive that will be surrounded by townhomes and a public street that will be surrounded by twin homes.
It'll be noted on item 23 that Councilmember Jameson will be excused. Are there questions of Mike on item number 23? Others that wish to address the council on item number 23? Is there a motion to approve?
Move for approval, Bennigan.
Bennigan moves. Is there a second?
Second, Litz.
Let's second it. Further comments on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion to approve item 23, will vote yes. Those opposed, vote no.
Council members Benega,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Costello,
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Knutson.
Yes.
Litz.
Yes.
All members present and voted. Item 23 has been approved, 6 yes,